guys, welcome to Live Yinsa. This is my first official bi-weekly vlog post that's connected to my launch vlog. I'm so excited to share this video with you. You're going to learn a lot about launching a brand. What is Yinsa? Yinsa is a yoga and Ayurvedic lifestyle brand that I developed this past year in order to make Ayurveda mainstream. Yinsa came out of my first yoga teaching certification, which I got in 2014 from Pure Yoga in New York City. At that time, I was a New York City high school teacher, and that took up so much of my time that I didn't really have time to explore my passion for yoga. I was able to teach in the high school that I worked at, but I wasn't really doing anything outside of that. Over the course of this last year, my teaching job became increasingly challenging, and I knew that I needed to use my creative energy in a very different way than I had been using it previously. So while I was grading Regents exams with a bunch of history teachers, one of them being a very close friend of mine, we came up with the brand Yinsa. And we decided that I was going to create my own yoga and Ayurvedic wellness brand where I would share the potions and concoctions that I was making for my clients to help balance out their doshas. And I would also have a private yoga business. So those things would become one brand. So I created a logo with the same person. She did it for me, and she created a tagline for me. And so Yinsa was born. I started with some focus groups that tried out my skincare products. There were like 3 or 4 different products at that time. And then right after that, I joined B School. And it was through B School that I really understood what an entrepreneurial effort was going to look like. That's where I learned how to market. That's where I learned what a brand should look like, especially a premium brand, because I was trying to enter into a premium market. And it's also where I learned how important blogging and explaining who you are is to the world if you're going to have an e-commerce business. So that's kind of where this YouTube channel and my blogs came out of, because a lot of people see the word Ayurveda and they don't even know how to pronounce it. So it was really important to me that I made Ayurveda mainstream. That was my goal for Yinsa from day one, and that's still my goal. I want everyone to know their dosha. I want everyone to know what they should be eating in the summer and how it's different from what they should be eating in the winter. And I hope through these videos and through my blog posts, you guys can get that. So the idea of having a launch party for a brand that actually already existed really came out of the idea that people were asking me what I do and what I was doing, and I kept explaining it over and over again, and I was explaining it different ways, and I wasn't necessarily making myself clear, which meant that my brand wasn't clear. So in planning a launch event, it forced me to make sure that my language was really clear, that my focus was really clear, and that the Yinsa lifestyle could be on display for people who had no idea what yoga and Ayurveda meant and how they were connected. It was a way for me to create, a tangible product or a tangible event that people could see and learn and experience what a Yinsa lifestyle would be. So that's where the idea of the launch came from. So when I decided that I was going to have a brand launch, it was after my brand was already created, but I knew that I needed to introduce yoga and Ayurveda to people who had no idea what yoga and Ayurveda was. And people who don't know what yoga and Ayurveda is aren't necessarily going to read a bunch of books on it or read my emails and texts and newsletters and have any idea what I'm talking about. So the launch idea really came out of how can I, in just a couple of hours, explain to people what Yinsa is, what yoga, why yoga is important, why an Ayurvedic lifestyle is important. So that's really where the idea of the launch came from. The first thing that I thought about when planning my launch was where I was going to have it. And initially I thought about yoga studios or spas, something that was connected to one of the 2 things that I was branding around. But what I eventually ended up doing was using the inspiration of a local bookstore owner, Tatiana Nicoli, who opened Boulevard Books right before the Nook and the Kindle were created. So she had this really cute independent bookstore. It was the first place in the community that I was connected to and that my son was connected to. We were both members of the book clubs there, his the kids book club and mine the adult one. And we watched Tatiana really evolve her business as it became more and more challenging for independent bookstores to stay afloat. So she eventually created a Pinot's Palette, which is a franchise paint and sip store. And at my last book club meeting that I attended, I was talking to her about the fact that I was starting a business, and she gave me all these resources and all these ideas and really was like, you can absolutely do this. There's no reason why you can't do this. So when I was planning my launch event and choosing the venue, I chose Pinot's palette because I really wanted to support a girl boss in my neighborhood who was really inspirational to me. So because I was having my launch event at a painting studio, I knew that painting would be incorporated into the event. So the idea was that I was going to use chromotherapy, as we use in Ayurveda, to help balance out vitiations for the season. For this season, my launch event was held during Pitta season, which is the summer. The idea is that you use lots of pastel colors during Pitta season. You wear pastel colors, you spend time in spaces that have lighter colors, because it's less jarring than having like really bright reds and blues and oranges during a season that is very bright and intense. So when I thought about what we were painting, first of all, we chose an Om sign, which was totally fitting for my brand, but we also chose the colors that we would be using to paint with, and they were connected very much to chromotherapy during Pitta season. The other thing that I really wanted people to do was engage in an oil blending workshop. Essential oils have played a huge role in managing my own imbalances. When I'm super stressed or exhausted and I can't fall asleep, I use a lot of lavender oil or ylang ylang. When I can't get out of bed in the morning, I use peppermint and rosemary or eucalyptus. So oils are very much a part of the Ayurvedic lifestyle, so I knew that I wanted to have an oil blending workshop where people could create blends of oils that would help manage their own imbalances. The last thing that I knew I needed to do, because I was sure that there were going to be people at this launch that had no idea what Ayurveda was I needed to have a panel of speakers who can speak to how self-care and balance connect to Western medicine. So in doing that, I chose one speaker who is a PR rep, and she's also a former nurse. And then I chose someone else who is the curriculum director for the Prema Yoga Institute, which is where I got my Ayurvedic certification. And she is also a professor of medicine at the CUNY School of Medicine. So she has experience with both the Eastern medicinal world and the Western medicinal world. So I thought that she would be a really great speaker and would do a good job of explaining how the Eastern and Western medicine worlds intersect. So those were the three components that I knew I needed at my launch event. So whenever you have any kind of event, especially one in the evening, you have to think about food and beverage. Divya's Kitchen is an Ayurvedic restaurant that is attached to the Bhakti Center. The Bhakti Center is like my church, okay? It is where I practice Krishna consciousness. It's where I chant every Thursday. And it's just a really important space for me. So Divya's Kitchen is somewhere that I spend a lot of time walking past, and I've ordered food from there before, and their food is amazing. So I decided that I wanted Divya's to cater my event. I also knew that I wanted people to try my products before I asked them to buy them, so I created Yinsa swag. I had gift bags that were created for each dosha, Kapha, Vata, and Pitta. And they had toners and sample soaps, and they also had some marketing materials that would connect them to my website. At the beginning of the event, all the participants took a dosha quiz on my website. So it got them to my site, first of all. They had the option of entering their email address, so it got them to sign up for my newsletter so that they could be updated on Yinsa content. And it also got them to understand what a dosha is. So they had to answer a series of 28 questions that talk about how their mind and body work, and at the end, they were given percentages of which dosha they connected most to. The most important thing around a launch, unless you're just inviting your family and friends, which I don't think is great for marketing, is you need to have some press around it. You need to make sure that there are local newspapers talking about it, or that there are bloggers invited. You really want people from all walks of life to attend a launch event so that the word is out there. A lot of times when we're marketing ourselves, we're just marketing ourselves to the same circle of friends that buy for us because they feel bad for us. That wasn't really what I wanted to do. I wanted to make sure that people who were outside of my world understood Yinsa. So I had a Yinsa hashtag so that anybody who was there could post pictures or content from the event using the Live Yinsa hashtag, and anybody that was in their networks, they would then have access to the Yinsa brand. I also reached out to a number of reporters and bloggers before the event to let them know that it was happening, and then I was able to send them follow-up press and photographs from the event and answer any questions that they had. So one thing I learned from the event is that you absolutely have to hire an event planner. I have always planned events. That's something that I've been doing since I'm young. I've planned baby showers and bridal showers and christenings and weddings, and the last, I would say, 5 years I've been planning these events, often with one of my former students, Sibel Mejia. She planned her prom with me. She helped me plan a trip to Costa Rica, and we raised $12,000 to take students to Costa Rica. She also helped me plan one of my closest friends' weddings. So when I was planning this event, I recruited her and asked her to help me plan this. While I loved working with her and it was really great having all hands on deck planning this event, it really took away from my ability to develop my brand and my products. And that was one thing that was really challenging. So if I was going to redo this launch, I would hire a separate event planner. Someone who was responsible for decorating the venue the day of, picking up all the food, making sure that the flower wall was there. Like, all of the decor and all of my vision could have been executed, but somebody else could have done the legwork so that I didn't have to call up a team of people the day of to kind of get all these things done, because it was just too much work for one person while I was also developing my brand. Played a role in my launch because I wanted to make sure that every element of the launch was somehow connected to my brand. So my food was Ayurvedic food specific for Pitta season. That was very much connected to my brand. The painting was using colors that are perfect for Pitta season rather than colors that you would use in the winter. So that was connected to my brand. The oil blending workshop included oils that are really good for managing vitiations, not just in the summer, but also vitiations, vata vitiations that we have in New York City. So I made sure that I had enough oils, different types of oils that were perfect for not just the season, but also other imbalances that we experience a lot here. I also really thought about the aesthetic, the decor. So I had a white rose and hydrangea flower wall with a wisteria valance, which people thought was a little bit ridiculous, but the colors were perfect for my brand. So the photos actually really go well with my brand. I used real flowers instead of using fake flowers and all the setups, because the idea is that like real plants are really good for your soul. So that was important to me. I made sure that the tablecloths and the table runners were all connected to the same color palette as my logo. So the aesthetic was really important to me because we respond as humans to beauty, and I wanted people to really get a feel for what the aesthetic vision of Yinsa is, not just like the tangible vision. So one of the things that I think is most important is having a plan B in case something goes wrong. The launch of my brand was really connected to the launch of my website. This June 15th, the day of my launch, was going to be the first time that my website was going to be live and you were going to be able to shop for my products online. In order to shop for my products online, I had to have photos of those products. And in order to have photos of those products, I needed to have labels on all of my bottles. And I was working with a printer who guaranteed a timeline and then was not able to meet that guarantee. So I didn't have labels for any of my product bottles until 2 days before. That meant that I had to recruit people to come and sleep at my house for 2 days to attach labels to bottles and produce, so that I could then do a photo shoot, which was really makeshift and done the night before, just so that my site could launch. So what I really needed to do was plan way ahead of time, make sure that I had labels on bottles a month or two before my launch. That was the first thing. You also have to plan for things to go wrong. My aunt had called me like a week before the event and asked if I needed any help. But at that time, I really didn't. But I said, you know what? I have a feeling that I may be really tight on time that day. So if you're available and can take the day and come out here, I'd love to have your help. And so I really planned for needing an extra body. And at the end, I really did need an extra body. So that was good. You also have to plan for what if the food doesn't show up on time, or what if the people don't show up on time. So we initially planned to do the oil blending workshop in the beginning. We initially planned to do the panel in the beginning, the oil blending workshop second, so that people could go downstairs, eat, make some oils, and then come back up and paint. Because we had 2 different invitations with 2 different start times, people were staggering in. I also lived really, really far. The venue was really far from where most people live in New York City, so that was challenging. So we had to really quickly switch gears and do the oil blending workshop first, have people take the quiz as they were coming in, work with oils, and then once everybody was there, we came up and did the panel presentation and then went right into painting. And we had space that was flexible enough to do that. So it's really important to remember, like, there are things that are going to go wrong. So just some tips, okay, if you're planning a launch. First one, to sum it up, hire an event planner, okay? You're not going to be able to do everything yourself, even if you are a micromanager, even if you are super pitta like I am and you don't like relinquishing control. You're not going to achieve what you want if you don't have help from a professional event planner. That would be my first tip for sure. The second is have a clear vision. Why are you launching? Why are you having this event? And what do you want it to look like? What do you want people to take away from it? That's really important. I wanted people to walk away understanding what Ayurveda was and why it was so important to creating a balanced lifestyle. And I think that me having that very clear vision made it easier to plan all of the moving parts that went before it. Plan for the worst, okay? There are things that are going to go wrong. So make sure that you have a backup plan for food. Make sure you have a backup plan for venue. Make sure you have a backup plan for lots of things. Like, what happens if this doesn't work? It will make, that one or two things that doesn't work out for you, it'll make it that much easier to get through those things. Make sure you hire PR. It doesn't make any sense to throw a party for your friends and family. You can launch a brand on Christmas if that's what you want to do. If you want to plan an event to launch a brand, you have to make sure that people who don't know you are learning about your brand through that launch. So making sure that you have some kind of PR and publicity around it is really important. Make sure that there's consistency around the brand. Like, make sure all of your invitations say the same thing. Make sure that anything that people are promoting for you around the launch, make sure that all the language is the same. Make sure that everyone is speaking the same language. Make sure that all the people on your team are promoting the launch in the same way and are providing the same expectations for people and the same promises. That's really important. If people are coming to your launch party expecting one thing and they don't get that thing, it's not going to look great for your brand. Last thing that I think is really important, even though that my connection to the venue was really meaningful to me, it wasn't necessarily clear why it was meaningful to my guests. So it would have been easier if I had a location or a venue that was more centrally located. This location was pretty far from where most people who attended lived. So if it was more accessible either by public transportation or there was a parking lot close to the event, that would make life a lot easier for people. So think about the venue that you're having it. You don't just want to pick the cheapest place if it's the furthest place, because then you're not going to get people there and it's not going to be worth it financially. The last thing that I think is really important is asking for feedback. And I learned this as a classroom teacher. You might think that you planned a really great event and you might think that people walked away with an understanding of your brand and what it is that you were trying to get across. But if you don't ask people what they thought of the event, or you just ask people, hey, how was it? And they say, yeah, it was great. That's not going to be helpful for your brand. Say, what are the 3 takeaways? What are the 3 things that you learned about my brand from my launch event? And if people can't answer that question and give you 3 specific things that they learned that they didn't know before, then it probably wasn't a successful launch. So it's really important to ask specific questions about the launch, and that will help you not just plan future events, but plan how you execute the vision for your brand and how you market what it is that you're trying to sell. Okay, so I just want to give some shout outs to the people who supported me for this launch. First, I want to shout out Tatiana Nicoli, the owner of Boulevard Books and Pinot's Palette in Brooklyn, for providing the venue. I want to shout out Divya's Kitchen. Divya personally got on the phone with me to talk about the types of food that I would have at my event, what was perfect for Pitta season, what kind of people would be there, would they even know what Ayurvedic food was. So she did a really good job of explaining to me the best offering she could give me for my budget, and also really creating beautiful Ayurvedic food. I was really grateful for that. Let Them Eat Cake created branded Yinsa cookies that were absolutely gorgeous and delicious, and I had one on my way home after picking them up and didn't get another one because everyone ate them. They were super beautiful, and so if you're looking for anything personalized cookies, they're definitely the place to go in New York City, and they also ship around the country. Apto Media and Tatiana Kiseleva Photography were both responsible for capturing the event. Annalise Gardner of Apto Media has done a couple of videos for me. She's really wonderful. She's quick, and so there's a lot of back and forth in working with her. She really wants to make sure that she executes your vision in the best way possible. Tatiana Kiseleva, I met at a community group at the Bhakti Center, and I'm so grateful that I met her in that space, and it was a way to really bring the connection between me and the Bhakti Center together, and she took some beautiful photos. If you visit my website and actually read the blog post that's attached to this video, you'll get to see some of those pictures. They're really beautiful. Rent for Parties provided the flower wall for the event. Just something to think about. If you're going to get a flower wall, make sure it fits in your vehicle. I'll talk a little bit more about that later. But Rent for Parties was really great in the back and forth and making sure that I had not just the flower wall, but also the table linens and all the things that I need to make sure that my event was going to be on brand from a color perspective. Monica Monfrey, who is a yoga teacher that I collaborate with often. Her brand is called The Wealthy Teacher, and she runs Wealthy Teachers New York City. She did my oil blending workshop. She has experience working with doTERRA oils, and we work so closely and so much together that she really understood what I was trying to do with Yinsa, so she did a great job at the oil blending workshop. People walked away really happy. Tara Ray Bradford was my PR rep, but she also spoke on my panel. She is a former nurse turned PR representative, the founder and creative director of the Potentialista. And Lisa Staiano-Koiko is a professor of medicine at the CUNY School of Medicine. She did a really great job of explaining on the panel how Eastern and Western medicine connect. So I'm really appreciative of those two for doing that for me. Katie McCarthy, who asked the questions at the event, she also checked people in. She's a former student and she did a bunch of copy editing for my website and my quiz. So I'm very grateful to her. Sibel Mehia, I would not plan any events without her by my side. She really is the only person who's been able to execute my aesthetic vision that I want for different events, and she did a really good job with this Yinsa launch event. Yeah. I also want to thank all of my friends and family. The morning of the event, I had to call like 5 or 6 different people. My son, his girlfriend, my friend Donna, my friend Stephanie, my friend Irene. They all just showed up when I called and were like, tell me what I can do, and everybody took a job, and it was the only way that this thing was going to get off the ground. The posters behind me were created by Stephanie Manister. She is not an artist by trade, but can certainly be, clearly, because I'm not erasing these posters because I'll never be able to recreate them. I'll just buy new boards. So she was really great. So I really appreciate all the help that everyone gave, especially packaging the Yinsa products the day of, and the setup and the breakdown, which is really, really a lot of work. So one of the reasons why I say hire an event planner. Thank you so much. Please remember to like this video, subscribe to my YouTube channel, and all of the people that I shouted out in this video, all of their contact information is in the description below. If you have any questions about the products or services that I mentioned, please feel free to reach out to me. You can comment on this post, and I can't wait to hear from you.